Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy off day, Cubs fans. A day to finally rest. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo on the end, Ryan Herrera in from the press box, and in the middle, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jordan Bernfield. Woo! Gracing us with his presence.
Reoccurring guest.
Yes.
Now officially reoccurring again.
Friend of the we like to say friend of the show.
It's good to be back. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
Dressed up real nice, too.
Just for you, Cody. It was really just for you.
I felt bad. I walked in, I'm wearing shorts. Everyone thinks that these aren't shorts, at least according to last night's show.
Actually.
And now, you know.
How are they not shorts?
Well, listen, the chat, it was last night.
They were
Barb, she's a wild
colored.
card. There's a bunch of other people who thought I wasn't wearing pants. We're celebrating the Cubs winning 10-4 last night, and people at the end of the show are like, is Cody wearing pants or not? And I'm like, yes, I'm wearing pants.
According to Barb,
But you proved that you're wearing pants today.
3 out of 4 hosts are wearing
pants.
trousers today, as Barb would say.
Yes. A great Pat Hughes word, trousers.
Trousers, yes.
By the way, Aaron agrees with me. Doug says, see, I'm not egotistical as to say things that get my name mentioned during the show. That said, I totally agree with Luke. Aaron says, first I didn't agree with Luke, but then I turned out I actually did agree with Luke. Grant Friedman says, Luke really makes a good point. I agree with him. Brent says, I always agree with Luke, and most of the time I agree with Cody. So thank you for agreeing with me.
It's just nice to win a little bit of that, too.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
But also, they were saying this before Luke said anything today. So
Right,
it's like,
but
it's cheap.
I'll read your name
It's
and
cheap.
whatever you said if you agree with me.
Yeah, it's like if you use hashtag vibes, I'll try and read it if I'm not like ranting about something and not looking at the chat. I try to read them if I'm looking, but I'm not looking at the chat the entire time like Luke always is, because I could be saying something, blah, 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 blah. This guy was not good tonight. Luke's automatically like, oh, this guy says he agrees with me out of nowhere, all right? You'll do that sometimes.
I will. I will. Hey, should we get right to the breaking news?
Should.
The big breaking Cubs news? By the way, this is mostly for the people doing the live chat and watching the live show on YouTube. If you're checking this out podcast form, it won't be as breaking at that point when you're checking it out. But here it is. We got new dope merch.
New dope merch.
Let's go.
New dope merch.
Look at that.
Third new shirt of the season is out from CHGO. Go to the CHGO locker, allchgo.com. Home of the North Side Baseball Club. I like this one. I like this one.
I gotta say, I hope this is a like maybe a little tease, a little sprinkle to like a hat, because like I do like the hat in the middle.
That would be a cool hat.
Yeah,
It would be a
Got
cool
Field
hat.
of Dreams vibes going.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like old-timey,
Yes.
old school type vibes, what I'm
but
getting from these shirts.
other than the tease that I'm trying to manifest, the shirt bangs. Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you sign up to be a diehard, one of those beauties could be yours for free. Because when you sign up to be a diehard, you get access to all of Ryan's articles, not just some of Ryan's articles throughout the season. And you get to choose one free shirt from the CHGO locker. So maybe that's the one you want. Maybe you want the one that I'm wearing. Maybe you're the one. 3 out of 4 hosts are wearing CHGO shirts.
And also, if you're already a diehard, you can get it for 20% off.
20% off all
it's
the
like
events.
all the perks.
We got the Bears schedule coming out. I'm guessing there's going to be a tailgate for that Packers game, first game of the season. Soldier Field.
20% off all events.
Everything, all events. And, of course, you get the box with the CHGO diehard card, which will get you lots of things. In fact, if you go to the wine place that Jordan works at as well, you could probably throw that down. They'll give you an expensive bottle of wine for free.
Yeah, I did not offer that.
Oh, you didn't? You did. That was
Yeah.
me.
I'm
I
willing to try it out,
apologize.
though.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
I'm going to take
Yeah.
the card in that box and go to the winery and see if it works.
Yeah,
What's the name of the wine place again?
Domain.
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 Yeah, wine
It's
collectors.
for wine collectors.
Yeah, wine storage, wine transit. All things wine collection. So, and we sell some wine as well.
See, so when Jordan's not broadcasting tons of games on ESPN and other outlets, or when he's not watching Cubs baseball obsessively, he's also dealing with fine wines and collections around the area.
Yeah, I mean, it helps pass the time on a night when they're not playing so well, right? So,
Sometimes the wine
Yeah.
comes in. I don't know if you've noticed, it's not necessarily a fine wine, but it's very close. A good 3-1-2 beer bat chug from Cody after every win.
Yes.
He's not collecting them because we get them free in the fridge over here, but they're still
Yeah, Goose Island's my favorite beer.
that
course.
first drop hits your mouth. That's it.
Changed my life. When I became best friends with them, really did change my life.
All right, so Cubs just completed 16 games in 16 days. Not a ton of good things happened. They went 6-10 on that, and Nico Hoerner strained his hamstring a little bit, mild strain. Still isn't back. Could be back fairly soon, we think. Good things that did happen. Morel is up. Mervis is up. I'm curious, with the next stretch of games coming, Twins, Astros, Phillies, then Mets, Reds, and Rays at home after that to wrap up the month, what makes you feel good about the Cubs, Jordan Bernfield, as the Cubs try to finish up the month of May?
I mean, obviously, they just went through a tough stretch, and they're going to have another tough stretch coming up. But to me, I follow what's going on the socials, and I listen to you guys, and I hear what people are saying about the team, and I know that there's been some consternation about the recent rough stretch with certain people. I feel like what makes me feel good about this team, there's a lot of things. First of which is Justin Steele might be one of the top pitchers in baseball in 2023. And I think all of us sitting here, if before the season we had told you what his numbers would be today, you would not only would have signed for that, but I think you would have said, this means that the Cubs rebuilding effort has a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And so I think that's number one. I think secondly, Nico Hoerner, I know he's banged up a little bit right now, but has emerged as a all-star caliber player. I think that Cody Bellinger, I think none of us really knew what we were going to get from him. The fact that he's been this good to this point in the season has been great. Stroman, after last year, I think having kind of a shaky first season with the Cubs, has had a really good start to the year. I think that the record for me isn't that important as much as these trending parts of the equation are, because I still feel that unless things were to break incredibly well for the Cubs, they're not a playoff team this year, which is fine, because a year from now or 2 years from now, if they add Slug to this team and they add some bullpen arms and maybe one more starting pitcher, then you're talking about a team that can really do some damage. So I think this upcoming stretch is important, as all these games are, for certain players to keep developing and keep seeing what they are. And truthfully, as great of a story as Bellinger is, I don't know if I'm ready to fully buy it, right? I mean, I need to see more of it. But at this point in the year, I think there's way more positive than negative about the Cubs.
I think what Jordan Bernfield is saying is, like a fine wine, the Cubs need to age a little bit.
They do.
You need to let it settle. Swirl it around in your
Yeah.
wine, in your red wine glass a little bit. Take a sniff. Take a sniff of that red wine. Swirl it around a little bit more. You don't have the finished product yet.
Well, we're decanting this team.
Decanting. That's the word I was looking for. I didn't know it, but I was looking for it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm like, kind of disagree with you on, it's mainly on the whole making the playoffs or not. And that's only because coming to today, they're only 2.5 games back, despite being 6-15 since the end of the Dodgers series.
Yeah.
When they came to Wrigley. So, and my whole point of that is that this division sucks.
Agreed. I mean, look, they probably could win the division, flawed as they are.
Right. Yes.
But I think that going into the year, we knew.
6-10. By the way.
I mean, there are clear deficiencies.
Don't
right?
let the facts get in the way of the good story.
Yeah. And there's clearly deficiencies, right? I mean, they weren't built to have a great bullpen, and they don't have a great bullpen, right? I mean, they went in with Michael Fulmer as the closer, which I think was tenuous at best, and it has proved to be not a great bullpen. But
Yet. Like a fine wine.
yeah. So, I mean, the point is, what they are is, I think, a representation of the roster that they built, which is not probably good enough in a normal year to be a playoff team. That all said, in the greater picture of what they're becoming, there's so much to like about the direction that so many of these guys are going.
The positives.
You
You're
ended
saying,
it
Cody,
well there.
who expected the Cardinals to be this bad?
No one.
Nobody.
Yeah.
We were like, when we did our season predictions, we all said, okay, Cardinals are the class of the division. They may have some flaws, but they're the best team in the division on paper going in. Turns out right now they're not.
Are they this bad, though? Because I still maybe
Yeah.
it's just me being
I think
a
they
Cubs
might
fan.
be.
Well, no, I expect them to make a run.
Yeah.
I expect them to at least get back to 500 and hang around and make me very annoyed. Yeah. But I will say that I didn't expect it to get this bad, though.
Agreed.
I knew I did sit on this show and say in the offseason that if that team was going to be a real World Series contender like they should be, because they have 2 potential Hall of Famers on that roster on the back end of their careers coming off MVP caliber seasons, and they have all this young talent and all this, I said that they needed to add a starting pitcher, not sign Willson Contreras. They signed Willson Contreras and didn't sign a starting pitcher, and here they are 13-25.
I have to say, speaking of the Willson Contreras thing, was that not the weirdest? The fact that this is happening to them, I could see it happening to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised this is happening to them because I feel like anyone that followed Willson Contreras' career in Chicago, even if you were not in Chicago, knew. I don't think this was a secret that Willson Contreras, that the amount of time and effort the Cubs had to take to make him a passable defensive catcher. Right? Like, wasn't this known? And how did they not know?
Well, it's like
this is like role reversal.
It wasn't an industry secret either. Like that was a reason a lot of teams weren't clamoring to trade for him at the deadline. Why the Astros deal got kind of nixed, and why teams weren't, why he wasn't the hottest player on the market when he hit free agency. Right? Like the
Cardinals were just the only team that was willing to give him the $80+ million.
Yeah, they
a full-time catcher
saw something in him as far as replacing Yadier Molina, but the things that Yadi and Willson did really well weren't really the same. Like Yadier Molina was like he's like Yan Gomes, but like I'm not on steroids, but like he was Yan Gomes but better at doing that stuff, right? Willson wasn't the defensive catcher that Yadier Molina ever was, or he still isn't as good as Yadi ever was. Like the soft factors, the game planning, game calling, and that's like when you hear Oliver Marmol and all the Cardinals people talk about it, like that's what they're trying to get him to, is like all these, like learning how to be the catcher in their system, like Yadier Molina became and was really good at doing for a long time. And so that the for one, to just publicly strip him of catcher duties, like all this stuff is like, it's weird. It's very weird, and the optics
pinned
Oh,
it on him. They're like, we stink, and it's your fault.
Pretty much, and then they tried to walk it back and said that it wasn't. But it's like you literally stripped him. I mean, even if you walked back his catching like a few days a week, right? Like then people might start asking the questions, and then you can answer it. But no, they literally came out and said like we're not going to be catching Willson Contreras for the
Don't
time
let
being.
the facts get in the way of a good Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Might as
but
well just call the press conference. Like
I'm pretty sure they were 6-17 with him as the catcher, and like at round 500 with Kinsler catching. So
Well, and did you see that
close to it?
the decision was made with Wayne also asking Wainwright and Flaherty and some other pitchers, like, what do we do? It was like a group decision of, and they all were like, Willson not catching, Willson not catching. Now, I heard
apparently I read, I forgot where I read, it might have been Katie Boo of The Athletic, that Wainwright, when they met with him on Sunday, actually offered to like that be the, like when he pitches the day that Willson catches, like he's like, that he's going to be like a personal catcher, so to speak.
Yeah.
So apparently Waino wasn't completely all in.
Because Wainwright is probably calling his own pitches anyway, right? Like he's like, it doesn't matter who's back there. But I heard Matt Spiegel briefly on the radio this week before the series saying this is the first time he can remember. This is a clear sign that the Cubs not only have a better front office, but are a better franchise than the Cardinals. Moving a smarter. I think the phrase was smarter franchise than the Cardinals. How many times in your lifetime could you say that? Now, Theo on the rebuild in 2016, it's magic in a bottle and it all works for a little while. But when you kind of look at a decision like this, it's so un-Cardinal.
Yeah, I know that's why in 15, in my life as a Cub fan, other than when they won the World Series, when they destroyed St. Louis in the 15 playoffs, that was one of the most satisfying moments as a sports fan in my entire life. Because, like you said, they have always been the smart organization. We have not. And the roles completely reversed. And then I'm watching all this stuff with Contreras this week. Also, not surprising that he took the complete heel turn.
I thought it was fine.
That he's rounding the bases going like this and stuff. It's like, I think we all kind of knew him signing in St. Louis was going to bring this kind of
He's an entertainer.
And everyone knew he was going to embrace it.
Yeah.
He's an emotional entertainer.
And this is what we talked about on Monday. It's like, as long as it's give him his due because what he did as a Cub, right? Like he won the World Series, made 3 All-Star games, great.
Yeah.
But he's also a Cardinal now. So if you're a Cubs fan, like, sure, go ahead and boo him. He's probably going to invite you to do it as he did all series,
He
right?
loves it.
Go ahead. He thrives off that. So, like, don't forget that. If you're a Cubs fan, like, don't forget he likes when you boo him, when opposing teams boo him. But, yeah, I had no – I knew, like, if the boos were going to come, he'd embrace it because, he talks about he still loves Cubs fans, whatever they do. Like, he's not –
Well, and we watched him do it here. I mean, every time I went to Milwaukee hates him. It's funny how his brother plays there now. And sometimes I will stroll into Brewers Twitter and I'll see all of them just like comparing him and Willson Contreras and how he's so much. It's just like, dude, you guys are freaking weird, man. Like I just like it's. But again, Willson Contreras has had some moments with the Brewers, and he knows that they don't like him. So like, yeah, when he was a Cub, we got to see that side, and so that's why I don't have a problem with. All the antics on the bases and stuff, because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
So I'm walking it back to like your original question.
Yeah.
Like what makes you still feel kind of
what makes you feel good about the rest of the month? The Cubs, the rest of the month.
They are as far as the underlying numbers go, and it's a results based sport business. Like the results matter and whatever, but you look at their stats, their underlying stats, and they're a pretty good all around team. Like just overall WAR. According to Fangraphs, their pitching staff, their starting pitching is 9th. Their bullpen is 9th. Their just whole position player group is 4th. Like, they're a good team, and the fact that they're 1 game under 500 now, like, they had that pretty bad stretch, right? Like, but we also have talked about it, like, they weren't getting blown out. They weren't just getting no hit, like, whatever it was. Like, it was a bunch of close games, and that magnifies some of the decisions that David Ross makes, or when a bullpen blows a 1-run lead, which we know bullpens do plenty of over the course of a 162-game season. Like, that's going to get magnified in a stretch like that when 10 of your last losses are all 3 runs or less.
So you're there almost every day. Are you surprised by how much Ross is getting crushed on? So I personally am fairly surprised by how much Ross gets destroyed on social media, because I think that when you rip the manager to the degree that he is being ripped, there is a presumption that the team should be way better than it is. And I think that objectively they're probably playing a little bit below where they should be given the numbers, but like they shouldn't be 15 games over. Like I don't look at this roster and say they should be running away with the Central. He's doing a bad job. So I feel like there is a presumption of things that he can't control, but it's like, what is he supposed to, like, if we're going between Boxberger and ALLCITY, like, what's the...
Well,
and then when you
wait
look
till
at
the next segment, Mr. Bernfield. You read my mind.
For one, no, I'm not surprised because I saw them rip him the last 2 years, and those teams were they weren't as good as this team, right?
Worse, way less talented.
But it's also to the point where, like, he makes the decisions and they'll get scrutinized, but the players also have to perform. Like, the one I think was it Miami when they had the bases loaded 3 times and like scored 1 run off of it, and like it was their best players. Like their best players were the ones striking out. Like I think Happ might have stricken out in that time. Like their best players, the guys that are supposed to perform, didn't get it done. So it's like you scrutinize some decisions for sure. Like we talk about the bunts, but like it's also sometimes the decisions he makes should work in theory, and they just don't.
Well, to me, the only criticism I've really had with David Ross, honestly, has been the bunts at times, and then I don't like how he's made a lot of the lineups. And Luke can stand up for me for this. I'm not one who complains about lineups a lot, but I can't take seeing Eric Hosmer hitting 6th again while Matt Mervis is on this roster, and you also have Trey Mancini. Like there have been,
he was also hitting over 400 with runners in scoring position.
I understand that.
Just saying.
If you look at the overall numbers, he should not be hitting 6th in this lineup.
Yeah, that's fair. But
I understand that Flaherty was awful against lefties.
That's a spot where you're going to have runners in scoring position. That's all I'm going to say.
Hold your thoughts on David Ross, because first I want to tell you.
I'm just saying that like those are the only things that I've ever had, and it's not like I'm sitting on this show every single day complaining about the Cubs lineup. But there have been times where it's like, why is this guy here and Christopher Morel and down batting 8th and 9th or whatever, especially with the way he's hitting the minors.
To be fair to Cody, he doesn't complain about the lineups that often, and he has worn pants on every show.
Except for the last 3 days.
Except for recently, which was debatable. Hey, Pins and Aces, the official golf apparel partner of ALLCITY and CHGO. We love our Pins and Aces gear. Get tons of compliments on and off the course. Cody's got a nice little hoodie from them, little white, cool hoodie.
Oh, yeah.
Wicks away the sweat, keeps you cool, but also keeps the sun off you. They're a family-owned golf and apparel business. They make amazing polos, hats, golf bags, even our favorite beer sleeve, an innovative product that allows you to store 7 beers right inside your golf bag and keep those drinks nice and cold the entire round, or maybe an expensive bottle of wine. It depends on who you're playing with. Check out pinsandaces.com. Use the code CHGO to receive 15% off your first order. Get free shipping as well. That's pinsandaces.com. Now, one great thing about Fubo TV, which I have on my phone, is that you can take it anywhere. But you could, first of all, you could hook up Fubo TV right to your television at home. You get a smart TV. Yeah. Just cut the cord from the cable company. Move on without them.
I got it.
There you go.
Got a little Fubo?
I got Fubo.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, he does have Fubo.
Yeah,
Fubo
see,
action.
I got my
I
Fubo.
see it.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There it is.
You watch Marquee on it?
Well, yeah,
that's one of the only
reason
ways
it's there. You can take
that's one of the only ways you can in this city.
Yeah.
But they do have 140 plus live channels of sports, shows, movies, and news. Stream live TV from any device. Watch the most Chicago sports for the lowest price. Start watching immediately. They've got a 7-day free trial right now, which is great. Check it out for a week. See what you think. They're pretty sure you're going to love it. No contract, no cable, no hassle. Just sign up, start watching. You also get 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. Watch your local teams while you're traveling. Maybe you got a little summer vacation coming up and you're not going to have the Cubs with you. Well, now you could. Pop it on your laptop, your iPad, your iPhone, whatever you might have. Got some big events coming up, too. Currently, the NHL and NBA playoffs. You have the PGA Championship coming up. You can watch it on Fubo. You got the French Open coming up. You can watch it on Fubo. And, of course, as Jordan mentioned and Ryan, watch your Cubs on Marquee with Fubo TV. Use the link in the description to save 15% off that first month of Fubo Pro. Something to check out. You know what I like about it, Jordan, is there are no interruptions. You know, back in the day, if you'd have tried something like this, you'd had hits, delays, spinning wheels of death. Man, it's just the game on mobile.
Yeah.
It's as clean as sitting in your living room watching it, which is the other way you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, more often than not, I've got my phone and I'm watching the game on my phone or my iPad or whatever, because how often do we really get to just sit in front of the TV for 3 hours and
that's life.
Watch the game, right? Yeah. We're all busy. We all got stuff going on. So, pop it on the phone. It's super easy.
Marcus in the chat says it's not Ross's fault or Rick's fault. I'm tired of people in the chat blaming these two people for the Cubs not playing good or that we are a bad franchise. They could be worse. We could be Sox fans.
Oh, wow.
It's true, though.
Yeah. That was a direct shot.
I think the Sox fans the Sox guys would actually agree with us in a way.
Right now.
Maybe not like publicly, but like if we were just talking to them like at a bar or something, I feel like they might agree with us.
All right. So my question I have 2 questions about the David Ross thing, because he has been, we've openly said all season, this is the first year you should really be judging whether or not he's a good manager, because there are real players on the roster. Not to offend the other guys that were on the team, but they were in a clear tear-down mode. And there were clearly players that were playing at the major league level that weren't average major league players, right? They were certainly below major league or had been players that were on the back end of their career. So now the Cubs are trying to build. The floor has been laid, if you will. Are there any popular managers in baseball? I realize that it's easy. I can question things that David Ross did this season. Most of them are second guessing, a few first guesses, but really, who are the popular managers? Dusty Baker's a guy they're going to face here coming up. That Dusty came into town and was very popular when he first got here. By the time he left, nobody says anything nice about Dusty. I don't think that's necessarily fair either, but he just won a World Series, so is Dusty. I wonder if Dusty's getting the same treatment in Houston.
Well, not now after they won.
Yeah.
Didn't take Joe Madden very long to fall out of graces.
Right. Well, I think Joe Madden was beloved until Game 7 of the World Series. Despite the fact that they won it, I think that people are still litigating Game 7 to this day, which is incredible to me because it's like
They won.
I mean, they won.
They won.
Like, yeah, there were
Why
some dumb
find
things.
something
They
wrong
won.
about
Who
winning after
cares?
108 years?
Right.
Yes, but I think that your point is well made, but I also think that in baseball, I just think that the sport lends itself to people watching it and having enough time to view decisions and feel that they could make the decisions better than the person that is managing the game. Because I know the baseball's faster now, but it's still a slower game. And as a result of it, people watch it and think, I could do this better. I'd put this guy in. And everything is hindsight. And so, I think that one of the things that managers always suffer from is, I mean, you know this because you're there every day. Like, Ross has certain guys he can't use because of pitch counts or the amount of times that they've been used in the last week. And so the fans are going to go, well, why didn't you use this guy? It's like, well, he was down today, and you don't always know that.
Yeah, it's like the Moreau on Monday when he got there.
Right.
And it was like, well, he had just been on a plane for like multiple plane rides, then had to, it's like, why didn't he go in when Nico got hurt? It's like, the dude really had like a really long freaking day. I think like David Ross, like maybe he could have put him in there, but I think the whole point was to not use him, like literally like the last resort kind of thing to use him, which he won't publicly say. He won't say that Nico was not usable the last couple of days. He's going to say like he might be able to come off the bench.
Yeah, so I think inherently managers wear it in a way where they have to because that's part of the job, right? Yeah. They can't explain everything that's going on because there are guys that they're protecting in the clubhouse, so they have to wear it a little bit, and he certainly is. But I just think like managers in baseball don't make enough of a difference on the day-to-day of a game, of a team, that Ross deserves the level of consternation that is going on. Like, I think that most of the time managers don't make that big a difference except for do the players play hard for whoever the manager is. I think in the Cubs case, they do play hard for him. I don't think there's ever a question of effort.
Yeah, he hasn't said jog to first base, and he hasn't fallen asleep in the dugout.
Right. So I mean, like unless you are walking guys on 3-1, like LaRussa was doing last year, or falling asleep in the dugout, or things that are just like so unbelievably egregious where you're like, this is just not going to work. And also like with that, there was the dynamic of like the age and the whole thing. Like then, okay, fine. It doesn't work and it should be criticized. But I don't feel like, while I don't think that David Ross is, I don't know, Casey Stengel in his prime, I'm just saying like, I don't know that we're talking about, like I'm trying to think of like
Cody was
great
like,
managers of the past. Like what is he supposed to do, right? They have a flawed roster.
He's no Don Zimmer.
Yeah.
Right. He's not. He hasn't been
no
thrown
Zim.
down by
He's
Pedro
no Jim
Martinez.
Fry.
So what are we really
yes,
going
Barbara
nuts
reading
about
the
here?
chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I respond to that, Niren said Terry Francona, and I think that's a good one. Like no one, I've never really seen anyone say anything bad about him. Or
But I'm not on their Twitter very much.
Yeah,
Bud Black is like a liked manager, but he's
all
managing
Terry
the Rockies.
Francona's won a couple rings, like maybe
Snicker.
Bruce Bochy. He's won a couple. He won 3 rings with the Giants.
Liked manager.
I guarantee there's
yeah.
fans that don't like him.
Those are 2 good examples.
So,
Right.
Cody, I want to ask you. I want to hear your response to what Jordan said, and I also have a question. If you have one game to win, you have to win the game. The Cubs have to win the game. Who's managing that team and writing out the lineup, all of it? Is it Joe Madden or is it David Ross?
Okay. Well, while I say this, I'll think about it.
Okay.
So I'm multitasking over here. Big of me. But like you were saying, I tend to agree with like everything because I always thought how Joe Madden became beloved here is because he just did things a lot different than you ever saw any other manager did. And, whether it's bringing a giraffe into Wrigley Field or a tiger or some weird shit in 2015, yeah, he had the talent. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, all those guys, like the talent was there, but like they had that 2015 team was kind of similar to this team where on opening day, the projections had them maybe winning 80 games. 77 for this team? And then I know that they had the huge second half and they ended up winning 97, but they were probably on pace for 80, 85 wins before August.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me right now, it's still hard for me to grade David Ross. Yeah, there's things that he's done that's made me irrationally angry, and then there's been moves where I'm like, oh, that's a good move, and I probably haven't said it on the show because when the Cubs win, I like to give the players credit more than I do the manager, and when the Cubs lose, everyone likes to blame the manager, right? So, and I'm openly admitting that. So, but in terms of what you're saying overall, like I do think the manager's biggest thing is getting the guys to play for them and then managing the bullpen. And I thought Joe Maddon was notoriously awful at managing the bullpen, unlike David Ross. I do think David Ross is better at managing the bullpen than Joe Maddon. So you asking me who I would want in one game, I probably at this point would still take Maddon just based off experience and like being in those situations. But I also don't blame anyone who might take Ross either, just because I do think that a lot of his decision making is coming from the front office. But at the same time, I see moves that he's making and he's thinking ahead. And you want a manager that's like that and doing that all the time. And yeah, like Ryan said, that might not work out, and he will get the blame for that. But I'd rather him be thinking ahead than not, more often than not. So
it's like where you'd rather have him be thinking, have a sound decision that doesn't go right than to just have the complete wrong decision.
But so you're thinking maybe Ross is a better in-game strategist.
Yeah,
but
because
like Nieren's talking about as far as managing personalities, Ross at that time, not just personalities and pressure, right?
Yeah.
He was the perfect guy for that franchise at that time because they had both of those, personalities and pressure, like weighing down on top of him. Do you think Ross is better at in-game strategy than Joe Maddon?
I do, because when I think about Joe Maddon and what he bothered me so much as a manager, I mean, I am so surprised that Steve Cishek's arm didn't literally fall off. I mean, they use that guy more than anyone else, and I understand that they're like, you said that this bullpen isn't that good. I don't fully disagree, but like, it's so much better that if they had this bullpen today in 2018, I think that team wins more than or goes farther than the wild card.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that their bullpen is improved this year. I mean, there's certainly things I like about their. I think Leiter has been great. I mean, his strikeout rate is tremendous. It's clear that he could be a part of the future. I think Rucker has some peripherals that I like. I'm not saying that their bullpen's terrible. I'm just saying that when they lose games in pressure situations with guys who are inexperienced,
right?
Like, am I going to rip David Ross because he put an inexperienced pitcher in the game who didn't come through? No, because like, how can I be upset that Michael Rucker blew a game when Michael Rucker doesn't have a track record of being this lockdown release? So I mean, that's all I really mean.
Okay,
that's one of those things is he doesn't have, like, you go back to like the 2016 bullpen, like at least Joe Maddon had Chapman, right? Like for the last half.
He had a close.
Also, Maddon did a bunch of things in 2016 that are crazy, but they were so good that they worked out. Like when he put Travis Wood in left field and then put him back in the game to pitch, and he not only gets a strikeout but makes a catch at the wall in left field, and then it's a homer the next inning. And it's like, Joe Maddon is a genius. Look at this.
Yes.
So I mean, like, when you're winning, the manager is always going to get too much credit. And when you're not winning, the manager is always going to get too much blame. And most of the time, it's somewhere in between. I just think that, like, relative to my expectations, speaking only for myself, I don't feel like this team, unless things were to break the right way, is probably a playoff team, unless, again, they were to add at the deadline or they get some performances that are maybe above and beyond. So, like, am I going to get mad at David Ross for managing them to the level that I figured they would be, which is around 500? No, I can't be that mad about it.
I guess to close out what I was saying is there were so many times where I felt like Maddon he would get attracted to like one particular guy in that bullpen, and he or two, and he overused them so many times. I felt like he would tax the bullpen on, like, without really trying to.
Yes.
And so, like, when it comes to in-game stuff, managing bullpen, stuff like that, I think David Ross has been better at that. Yeah, it hasn't always worked out. Do they need, like, a bona fide closer? I mean, yeah, I guess so. But considering, like you said, with where the team's at right now, it's like I can't be that mad at David Ross for, honestly, I would say that they have outperformed expectations in a way, because no one thought this team would hit like it is, and no one thought this team would pitch like it is either. Considering their run differential, they should be like 10 games above 500 right now, and they haven't. And a lot of that is mainly on the players more than David Ross.
And their record in one-run games is what is it, 2-9?
2-8 still.
2-8.
So
yeah.
I mean, like, is that all on Ross? I don't think so. Right?
Well, and that's some of that's just bad
Yes.
baseball luck, like a ball falling in the outfield that doesn't get caught. Like so, some of that could literally change some of those one-run games
Added
from
balls.
losses to wins. It's like,
But you said it earlier too. I mean, like, there were times in that Marlins series where they had guys at the plate that you'd want at the plate that don't come through. That's not the manager's fault.
Yeah.
Like, if we're looking at their lineup, and one area where I think it is fair to criticize Ross is I don't know that Seiya Suzuki needs to bat fourth anymore, because if we're looking at the plate appearances that he's getting versus others, until he figures it out offensively, maybe he should be further down in the lineup, and you should give other guys opportunities to come. You know, I don't mean like in the whole like cleanup hitter sense. I'm not looking at it that way. I'm saying like if we're talking about who deserves more plate appearances or who deserves to be batting in big spots in the game, right now I think objectively, I don't really want Seiya Suzuki at the plate in a big spot, because over the course of this season, he has not proven to be a guy that is coming through in those spots. So, you know, maybe then, to your point, like maybe Morel needs to be getting more plate appearances and he should be higher up in the lineup.
I think the chat would buy some of that based on last night. Now, Seiya did have a better game last night, which is a good sign moving forward. Like if he can build on that, that would be nice. And I do still give him. He didn't have any spring training, but now he's played enough games that those games to me would equal spring training. So it's almost as if his season is starting. In my eyes, it's almost as if his season is starting now.
yeah, he's at 103 plate appearances, which spring training was like maybe in the 60s, something like that. Like
so
that what guys usually get. So
He's early.
he's still like, if you want to go based on like when opening day is, like he's still probably in that first couple 2 to 3 weeks of the season. So now I think you would hope that a guy you paid this much money to at like in a regular season, right, would already be in season mode, right? Like 3 weeks into, quote unquote, 3 weeks into his season. But yeah, yesterday was a good day for him. That's the kind of day they're hoping to get out of him. I'm not disagreeing with you either. I think
I mean, you can feel free to.
Well, but I'm not. I'm not, because I think
Easy wine boy.
the way David Ross makes out his lineups, I think he likes the continuity. And when you have guys like Nico at the top, Dansby right behind him, then Hap, who are all three playing pretty well, and then Seiya, like those are the four guys that are, you know, they got the contracts for the next 3 years, that like your core, so to speak, and so they want that to be the continuity, unless obviously they add like a Shohei Ohtani, like he's not going to bat behind some of those guys. But
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that name, if I may, because if the reason why this matters is Seiya, is I don't think and feel free to tell me you disagree on this.
I disagree.
Thank you. I don't think the Cubs can afford for Seiya Suzuki not to be good. And the reason is they've spent almost $100 million on him when you consider the posting fee and his contract. And I don't think – I mean, listen, I would love to live in a world where the Cubs are going to go spend $500 million on Shohei Ohtani. But I think we all know that that's not happening, right? So assuming
Way to kill the dream, Jordan.
Kill the dream,
Listen,
Jordan. Come on, man.
I would be the first to go buy his jersey. I'm just saying it's not happening.
I would be too. I'd be right
I
in
think
line
that the
with you.
Ricketts, I think that the Ricketts have taken too much heat for being perceived as cheap. But I do think at some point they're going to have to spend $300 million on someone.
they're going to spend $200 million on someone.
Yes, they're not going to spend $500 million on Ohtani.
They're not going to go from 177 to 550 or
Correct.
600.
But in the context of their eventual World Series team, they can't afford for a $75 to $100 million investment not to be good, because they are not Steve Cohen. They're not going to spend their way out of it, and they need him to be good, because if they're not going to sign Ohtani, they're going to end up signing somebody else. But that $75 million piece is still going to be relevant to the greater payroll of this
unless
team.
Owen Casey and Alcantara and PCA and who else do you want to put in there? Canario all turn out to be super studs. That's how you can afford that.
Arismendi Alcantara?
But if
That's a name.
Yeah.
if two guys out of that group turn out to be superstars. Now, I'm not saying that's likely. I'm just saying if 2 guys out of that group turn out to be superstars, that's how you start to make up for potential mistakes. I'm not calling say a mistake yet. I'm just saying that is the one position where this organization seems to have a lot of depth.
Yeah.
Like right now, if you were to tell me how would the Cubs trade for Shohei Ohtani, I would say, well, they'd have to trade some of their outfield depth.
Yeah. And again, I don't think that Seiya is a mistake either. I think that he has the ability to be a really good contributor to this team. I just think right now, given the investment they've made in him relative to what I think we all agree is probably a future realistic payroll, he can't stink.
Yeah.
Like, he can't stink. They need him to be relevant because listen, be amazing if somehow they became the Ohtani winner. But I just think it's more likely that, like what they did with Swanson, right? Which I think was smart because for 177, how much better would they be with Xander Bogaerts, right? To spend $150 million more. I feel like they got a great player in Swanson. So I'm not blaming them for
all those
what they're
teams
doing.
with like the Padres, Phillies, the Twins,
That's-
who we'll see
Yeah.
this weekend.
Yeah.
All of them, they all have around the same record as the Cubs right
Yeah,
now.
Right.
I don't look at that contract and think that the Cubs will regret it in 7 years. Like unless assuming health, of course, assuming health. Like I think Dansby will be worth the contract in 7 years. And you'll look back on it, you're like, that was okay. Even if
Right
he
now,
doesn't, even if he's not a perennial all-star that leads him to a World Series, like you'd be like, that was still a good contract.
Yeah.
To me, right
back and
now,
do
he's already outperforming just the AAV for this year. Like,
Yeah.
Right now, yeah.
The
He's
power,
so
the
smooth defensively.
the-
like
Oh,
you can't
defense
say that
alone
about
has
Seiya
been
yet either.
so
Yes.
fun to watch, and then the power's starting to come around these last couple weeks, and hit 25 bombs last year. We'll see where he ends up into this year, but
Yeah.
to bring it back around though,
Yeah,
like
where do we start off?
we were
Yeah.
we were talking about the managers, right?
Yeah.
Did Cody ever finish his point?
I guess
I don't know. Yeah.
again, I'd rather have Ross in the in-game strategy stuff than Joe Madden, but also I feel like there's something about that pressure that Joe Madden was able to take off from the Cubs in 16 that helped them win, and whether it was whatever the stupid things he put on the lineup card every day that they'd read or the things he would just say, that's not something that you can teach, or it was just his vibe, and that was perfect for that team. So yeah, you give me one game, I need one manager, and the way that I think about managers, I'd probably still go with Joe Madden, but it's
He enjoys a fine glass of wine after the game.
Joe Madden, for
ask
sure.
me
Yeah.
that question again in 5 years, and if the Cubs have had any success, I might change my mind.
Yeah.
You haven't managed his wine collection yet, have you?
I
No, not yet.
would not be able to say if I had, but no.
Okay. Oh, it's not able to reveal
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's not easy to manage a baseball team, but it is easy to manage your energy efficiency, Cody.
Oh, yeah. Jordan, let me tell you about the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, because these lights, they're bright. And it's
cheap.
probably because of ComEd, honestly. So this program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future.
Yeah, ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across their territory. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities like HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
Oh, Luke, how does it work?
Well, Cody, an authorized engineer, will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. They can be done in person or virtually. Either way works for them. They last about 2 hours. Then within 3 to 4 weeks, customers receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects they can start working on right away. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. If you own a business, don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to comed.com/poweringbiz.
Luke, did you say comed.com/poweringbiz?
That's right, Delmendo. Get it scheduled today.
Okay, I'm going to do it right after our next show.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Kalata said lights and rickets are cheap. You know what else is cheap, and not cheap in quality? Affordable?
Yeah,
Shady Rays.
that's right.
What a way to use Colada in the transition. The Godfather.
Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair that we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's what you get with Shady Rays. And that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection program in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. So if you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Actually, I'm going to have to, my cousin said that he took his Shady Rays to his dad's house, and his dog chewed him up.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if that counts under the lost and broken replacement program, but I'm going to have to.
They got his back.
We're going to have to reach out to Shady Rays. I feel like they're our friends. Like, they'd help us out, right? So yes, if you lose or break them, no questions asked, they'll replace them. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you purchase. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much-needed support to nonprofit partners across the U.S. through Shady Rays Impact. From building playsets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime, Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
Wow.
250,000.
We were talking about Seiya, and he's been one of the disappointing things so far this season, from the injury into the start after the injury. But back to what Jordan was saying at the very beginning of the podcast about all the positives, it's sort of tough to pick out if you could pinpoint Seiya as probably the biggest disappointment so far this season, the biggest positive. There's so many positives within the team individually that's why I would agree with you that there is much more upside to this season than there is what the record is currently showing. Because you could say Bellinger, you could say Nico, you could say Steele, you could say Stroman, you could say a lot of guys. So I do think that the record could certainly be better. Now, I want to ask you one final question. The White Sox are 13-25. The Cardinals are 13-25. I was reading an online deal about the rumor of the Cardinals trying to get Giolito to save their season. And I thought, well, okay, a 13-25, trying to save another 13-25. Which do you think is the most likely? The White Sox bouncing back in the AL Central to somehow be in the mix still before the end of the year, the Cardinals trying to bounce back in the NL Central, or the Cubs eventually running away as a division champion? Which of those three things
is more likely?
Is the most likely? If you had to put your Cody Delmendo bucks down.
Man.
I would say that I think the Cardinals are more likely to bounce back than those other two
and
options.
Make it interesting.
Unfortunately, and that's based off my
pain
and suffering of my entire life from this stupid franchise. I mean, it's literally the worst start in their franchise's history over the last 30 or 40 years. Like the 70s was the last time that they started off this bad.
They're doing it in the right year in a bad division.
But the thing, yeah, exactly. And the thing is that as bad as their pitching is, they still have a really great offense. And I do think their bullpen is going to be better than it has been. So if they can find a way to get their starters to give them 5 innings on a more consistent basis, I could see them, going on a nice little stretch like they always do in June or July, and you go into the All-Star break and they're maybe 5-6 games under 500, then they'll just get hot in August and I'll hate everything.
Well, Nolan Arenado is also having the worst season of his career, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's still Nolan Arenado.
Yes.
So, you can assume that he's gonna bounce back in a pretty big way.
I would say that you hate to see him opt in on that contract when he could have got paid so much money, but I don't hate to see it. I think I love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to live in a world where the Cardinals are bad. I have to admit, it's really nice.
When they lost 8 in a row, I didn't want to wake up from the dream, Jordan. I was just having the time of my life. I mean, the Cubs weren't doing much better, but man, let me tell you, it was so fun watching them lose 8 straight days.
Yeah. Well, I think to answer your question, I think I am on Cody's side here because if you look at the White Sox, they're not the worst team in the league, even though they played like the worst team in the league. But they get hurt. They have so many guys that can't stay healthy.
Their pitching's
and
horrible.
And their pitching has been bad. And then, like, Mancada and Jimenez can't stay on the field. And so, am I supposed to buy that they're going to come back and not? Because, like, they don't. If you told me they were fully healthy for 3 months, could I make an argument that maybe they have a run in them? I guess I could do that, but I don't. I just feel bad for some of those guys. Like, they cannot stay healthy. They can't get on the field. So, like, I just think.
The reason that, like, you could argue that they could bounce back is, like, their division is worse than the NL Central. I mean, the Twins are in first, and they're 3 games above 500. And then 3 of the 5 teams are, like, the White Sox, 13-25. Like, the Royals are – the White Sox aren't even the 4th or the worst team in the Central. Like, the Royals are worse.
Yeah. Well, couldn't the Guardians – I mean,
so you got
our guy,
right
Terry
now,
Francona figure it out. And
right. Like, the Guardians were favorites to win that division this year. You know, the Twins, they got Bucks and they got Correa. Their pitching's been very good. Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan.
So are we just going to say that
dudes?
the least likely is the Cubs running away with the Central? I
mean,
think that's how it feels to me. I don't.
It does, because I don't think they're running away with anything.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like both AL and NL Central are open enough that these, the Sox and the Cardinals, who are at the bottom. I guess you said the Sox are 4th, but the Cardinals bottom of the division. Like, these bottom feeders, as far as the divisions go, they're not that far out of it, and it's May 11th. Like, there's plenty of time for those 2 teams to turn some things around, get healthy, whatever. I don't know that I see the Cubs completely running away with the Central.
No, but they have become the most likely playoff team out of those 3 for sure. Yeah, after 13-25 starts for the other 2 teams. So remember, you're 1 game under 500, but you're not 13-25. Yeah, and you have a lot of positives on your individual players on your roster that those other 2 teams have not had this season either. So we got to go because the Hawks guys are hovering over the set, circling like vultures, waiting to get on here to do their hot show. We want to thank Jordan Bernfield for coming in.
Thanks for
good
having
to see
me,
you always.
guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, great to see you.
You going to come on again this season?
Anytime you want. Yeah.
When you're not dealing with wine, I'm dealing with wine. WHINE is mine type.
And I'm dealing with.
It's always wine time around 9:30.
I had to spell that slowly because my mind works slowly.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO. By the way, Cody and Ryan heading to Iowa, so if you want to see those guys,
if you're in Iowa,
they'll be there
tomorrow.
Friday.
We're going tomorrow.
Roadie. Taking a roadie to Iowa.
Hoping, fingers crossed that we're talking with Ben Brown and Cam Sanders.
Nice.
And
you
then
heard it here first.
Yeah. And then Brendan on Sunday, he just DM'd me on Slack and asked me if I could join him because Corey will be coming back from Hawaii.
So you'll be on Sunday.
So I'll be on Sunday with Brendan.
Aloha.
Sunday's the next live show? Okay.
So the next live show is Sunday, probably after the game. Barb.
But you can follow on social because there'll be all kinds of stuff coming from Iowa.
Yeah.
And until the next live game, post-game show, whatever you want to call it, you know what we always say, fly the W.